Hi makers, this is the first video that I'm doing for my blog called Here is a Place to Start. And my name is Hannah, and so some of you I hope are people who are returning to a place to start. After my long hiatus, I had some health issues and had to limit my crafting activities. I had to really focus on the few things that I could do without tiring myself out. So I'm giving this another try, and I think we have my disease under control now. So I should be able to be more consistent. But anyway, I know that immediately after Christmas, there is a huge influx of new crafters. People who've gotten cards from friends who craft, and they're like, oh, I want to do that. I think that would be fun. And their husbands go out and they go to Michael's or Joann's or get online on Amazon and they order cutters and laminating machines and just, people get a lot of stuff and a lot of paper and a lot of embellishments and a lot of things. And some new crafters actually really don't know what to do with any of that. They just know that they want to do it. So I had thought about for this first video that maybe I would do the traditional, well, here's the paper and this is the size you cut for a card and you do that, and that's kind of boring. So I thought we would start this first video making a real fun project. So the project that we're going to attempt to recreate today is this cute gift bag. This design was created by the lady over at Mixed Up Crafts. And I love it. And her bag, I mean, the actual bag design itself, you will see that others have done. But she did a real nice twist. Her original design was to put these really nice faux wooden handles on her bags. And so it just makes the bag really, really cute. And also, in her tutorial, she gives you this extra score lines on the one on your back and then one on the sides. I'm going to have to open it up so you can see it. I'll do that later. But anyway, and this really cool, fun clasp, which is just held on with a Velcro dot. I use a fastener tab from Tombow, but you can use the little circular Velcro dots, and they work just as well. I like these tabs because they give you a larger surface, and I think that makes a better hole. But on smaller things, you can cut these in half and use them just like Velcro dots. I like them because, like I said, the hole, they are very aggressive. And then I just attached a button, and I used I didn't use glue for this to attach it because I felt the button needed something a little better than the wet glue. So what I actually used was, let me reach over here and get this. Hold on just a second. Ooh, had to reach to the other side of my work table. I used glossy accents to hold this button on, just to make sure it would stand up to repeated use. One thing I will say at the outset, whenever I mention a product, when we start going through all the things that you see here on my table, I don't mean I want you to go out and buy this. If it wasn't in your Christmas haul, if it isn't in your stash, use whatever you have. Go through and look at the products that you have and use those products. I'm not advocating for any company. These are the things that I like. The veteran crafters already have probably all of this stuff and more that they like and they use. But for newbies, Whatever you have at hand, use that. Don't start out by getting into the habit of buying tons of stuff that you don't need. Take it from someone who has purged her studio many times, and I still have junk. And I have, well, I shouldn't call it junk, but anyway, I have stash in here that goes all the way back to 2010. I have paper that goes all the way back to 2005. I mean, I just have a lot of stuff. And you just have to learn to um, monitor yourself and edit yourself when you're shopping, and that's sometimes difficult to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, and we'll take a look at the things that we need to create this fun project. I'll start with the tools, and then we'll get to the paper. The one thing that you will need is a plate. This plate measures like, this is a 9-inch plate. And the important part is just because you're going to use this to do your cutout for your handles. So you don't want to go too deeply into your paper. You don't want to make a big cut out of your paper. So you want you want to go down at the widest point. I think this is maybe 2 inches, maybe 2.5 inches. Well, actually, it's about 1 3/4 inches at its deepest point. So you want a plate that will give you a 1/2 inch when it gets here, and you have a 1/2 inch on each side. But you'll see how we do this when we get into the actual tutorial. I tried the first 2 bags that I made. I didn't use a plate because I didn't feel like I had tried a couple of plates and they didn't work. And so I used my large die, my large circle die, but I got a big cut. You see the difference? It's almost 2 of those. And when you get this bigger cut, the opening in your bag is too deep. And so sometimes your gift it sticks over the top. It just doesn't look as nice as when you take the more shallow cut and you have a longer body for your bag. So you can play around with it. If you're following this video, you can stop the video and play around with your plate and just make sure that you get your measurements right. But that's what you need for that, okay? A couple other things you're going to need: a corner rounder, and we will only use this one time, but you need to have it out and handy just so that your workflow flows and it's not choppy and you don't have to stop and look for things. It's best to have everything at hand. You will need your trimmer, whatever trimmer. You can't use one of the small 6 inch, the really small ones that don't, the portable ones. You're going to need one that will allow you to at least extend the arm. So because you're going to be measuring out to 8 3/4 inches, I think is our longest piece. So, but you will need a good trimmer that will allow you to make long cuts. I am using Tim Holtz Distress Ink Vintage Photo. This happens to be one of my favorite inks. I have 3 Vintage Photo pads. I re-inked them. This one, it has, you can't see it now, but it has a lot of glitter on it, and so I'm using it just to distress the edges. The glitter doesn't come off. I've been using it on the bags, and it works just fine. You can use any dark brown ink as long as it is a dye-based ink, you will be fine. So, but it does need to be dye-based. For the new people, if you're new to crafting, then I think, and I will double check as soon as I finish this video, but I believe on Here's a Place to Start, we had a listing of the different types, like solvent inks, and just the different types of inks. You have chalk inks, and they interact differently with paper. The distress inks interact differently with paper when you put water on them. So that's down the road. You'll learn how to do that. But just look at your ink pad and make sure that it's a dye-based ink, and it will work just fine for you. Okay? Alrighty. You'll need snail glue. Wet glue is better on this project than double-sided tape, because a double-sided tape is unforgiving and will not give you enough time to move your paper around, and you want to be able to get your sides and handles perfectly married to the other components of this bag. And if you use score tape or red tape or any of the other double-sided adhesives, this thing is going to be stuck, and there you are with a crooked bag. And once that double-sided tape is down, especially like score tape and the red tape, you will have to just tear it up, because you'll never be able to pull it apart without ripping it. So that's why we use the snail glue. Again, I don't care what kind of glue you use. I'm not in the business of selling glue. This little bottle is full of Elmer School glue. I use that. I have Aleene's glue. I have 360 glue, I think it's called 360, 260. I have art glitter glue. I just have lots and lots of glue, and it works on some work on some things, some work on other things. I've found that I've had just as much success with the school glue, and I bought a 64 ounce bottle, and I just refill this, and so far I've not had a problem. All of my projects have held together very well for people that I've sent them to, and the ones that I've made for myself. So if you're just starting out, do not go out and buy, $10, $12, $13, $14 glue. You may decide after 2 weeks that crafting really isn't your thing, and you've wasted money. So my recommendation, and remember, this video is really for the newbies, so that's why I'm taking more time to talk about these things and explain them, because some of these explanations were not available when I started, and even now with some of the tutorials, I've noticed that the artists go straight into their project. They don't say, well, you're going to need all of these supplies. They just get started, and in a way, it forces you to watch the entire video before you can ever get started with the project. And I don't want to do that to people who may be doing this for the very first time. Okay. I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be using the glossy accents. You don't have to use it. You can use the glue. If you have a hot glue gun, you can attach your embellishment to your closer on your gift bag using the hot glue gun. I am hot glue challenged. I usually end up burning myself with the hot glue gun, so I haven't used mine in quite a long time because my husband is just like, you need asbestos gloves on, girl, when you start doing stuff like that. So I'm really a klutz in a lot of ways. So he's concerned that I'm up here around all these scissors and other sharp objects. But so you don't have to get this. If you have it, it's great because it has an aggressive hold and your embellishment will not fall off. But again, use the glue gun if you have a glue gun and prefer that. You need a pair of scissors. just to do, you have to do one or two little cuts. So I like these tonic scissors, the Tim Holtz ones. But again, use whatever scissors you have. You will need a bone folder. I have maybe 4 or 5 of these bone folders, the non-Teflon type, and they're very good because for you don't want to use them on the outside of projects if the score lines that you're burnishing are going to actually show on your projects. This is not the one you want to use because it will leave a shiny edge on your paper. Um, to combat this, before the Teflon bone folders, before I discovered the Teflon bone folders, I would always put a piece of old copy paper, computer paper, that I had printed something on and wasn't going to use. I would put my card base in there and burnish over the paper to avoid getting that shiny look. And when my husband and I had our retail business and we were doing a lot of weddings, a lot of church programs, and before we got an automatic folder, it was me and the bone folder and the copy paper. Now they have these beautiful Teflon bone folders, and they will not leave that shiny edge. I don't recommend using your nice Teflon bone folder for this project because we're going to use ink, and you don't want to really get that all over this nice bone folder. So I recommend that you get both. That I have a lot of different bone folders. Um, uh, I don't want to pull them all out, but there are various kinds, and I use different ones for different projects. It depends on what I'm making. When I make box projects and the more involved projects that you build, that are not cards or page layouts, um, these various shapes come in handy. So, but for this project, again, this is the bone folder. You don't want to use your nice one. You want to use this one, and save your nice one for a project that's not going to stain it. All of these of mine like this, they some of them, like I said, I've had one of these I've had since 1999. So it's been around the block a few times, and I clean it off, and it still works. Okay, and then of course these are those Tombow fastener tabs that I was telling you about. You need a pencil and you need a scoreboard. Okay, so I'm going to give you a chance to gather all of your materials together, and this is a new program for me. I hope to be able to figure out how to insert the text on the page so that you could see it. But if that's not up there, I didn't figure it out. And so just take the time and go and get all of your tools together that you need. Okay, so we're back. Normally when I do these projects, and we're going to talk about the papers that you need right now, but normally when I make these bags, I use A4 paper. It's easier. I didn't have to do any cutting. I just used the natural A4 sizes for my bags, and it worked out great. It worked out just great. But for this particular bag, which I am making for my infusion nurse, she's coming back tomorrow. She was here today, and I was going to give her this bag, but it says just married on it. So she was like, huh? So I'm going to still give her this bag. Then she can gift it to someone or use it for a wedding when one of her friends gets married. But she loves orange, and I found this paper that has orange tones and highlights in it. So I'm going to create her bag tonight so that tomorrow when she comes back for my infusion, I can give this to her and apologize for the first one, which is like, yeah, let's get married. But if you can find a A4 pad that has, and A4 paper, our paper in America is 8.5 by 11. A4 paper, which is what is used in Europe and I guess in Asia, Middle East as well. Um, A4 paper has a funny measurement. It's like 8.27 inches by 11.69 inches. So when I made my bags, I just really cut this down to the 8 1/4. So I really didn't have to cut off that much. And then I just used the natural length. But because I want to use this particular pattern for her bag, I am using, this was a 12 by 12 sheet. So if you don't have A4 paper, that's fine. You don't need A4 paper. You can cut your 12 by 12 sheet down to the sizes that you need. And the great thing about using the 12 by 12 is that you can get all of your pattern pieces that you need out of one sheet. Well, you're going to need 2 sheets of 12 by 12 paper, but I'll explain the difference in a minute. When I use the A4 paper to make this project, because I use the 2 sheets, my pad had 3 of each design. So in order to get these little tabs, these 4 little pieces that I needed, I had to cut a 1/2 inch off the side of my 3rd sheet, which means that now I'll have to cut that sheet up and use it for something else, but I won't be able to do like a complete bag project with it. With the 12 by 12, because you'll have a lot of paper left, you can just cut that 1/2 inch strip off, and then you can get your 4 little pieces, and they match up very nicely. So when I cut this, I got 2 of these and 2 of these, and I'm going to put these 2 on the front and these on the back for my back handle. So you'll see how that works when we start our construction. So get your scoreboard, not your scoreboard, your cutter, and you're going to cut your pattern paper to 8 1/4 inch. And you can leave it at the 12 inch length. You don't need to cut anything more. Just do that. Now, my recommendation when you are trimming 2 sheets of paper for a project, particularly something like this handbag, and you want them to line up, I recommend that you cut them both at the same time. Just put both sheets on your cutter and cut them. And that will make sure that both your front and back panel on your bag match up. And then we're going to cut, and then you're going to take from your excess, keep them together, and you're going to cut 1/2 inch. And for those who are new to crafting and new to using the trimmers, if you're cutting a 1/2 inch, you don't have to slide your paper over and get here for a 1/2 inch. I usually cut anything up to 1 inch. I use this side of my trimmer to cut it. So you don't have to try to figure out, well, I'm left-handed and this is awkward for me, or do I have to turn it around? I think this works for lefties and righties if you just use this side of your trimmer, if you're using the Fiskars. Now, I can't speak to how other trimmers are set up. I have 6 or 7 trimmers. This is my go-to trimmer, but they're most of them pretty much set up the same. And so then if you keep your 2 pieces together and you get ready to cut your 4 little pieces that you need to cut, they will be perfectly matched. And um, when you put your handles on your purse, your handles will be even. Okay? So that is all of the paper cutting that you have to do, and you don't need the trimmer anymore, so you can put your trimmer away. Okay? So let's review. For your pattern paper, you are going to take your 12 by 12 sheet or your A4 sheet if you have one, and you're going to trim it to 8 1/4 inches. That's your width, and that's very important. Okay, then you can use the natural length of your A4 or the natural length of your 12 by 12. It doesn't matter. From your scrap piece or stash piece, you are going to cut another strip from your pattern paper that is 1/2 inch wide, and then you need four like this at 2 1/4 inch. And I showed you, if you keep your 1-inch strips together, you only need to cut 2. You cut the first one, you make your first cut, you get that 2 1/2. Second cut, you get your 2 1/2, and you will have your 4. If you decide to just use the individual sheet, you can cut all 4 from one strip. But if you're using paper, especially paper that's busy, like the paper I'm using here, you need to bear in mind that these tabs are going to wrap around your handle. And so you want them to, when you marry them with your bag, you kind of want it to match up. So that's why I'm going to put 2 in the front, because I want this really cute kind of funky design to be, oh, well, I got it covered up, you can't see it, but I want that funky design to be on the front, because I have an idea of something I'm going to do with my closer. And then I'll take the text only, this little kind of newsprint, and these 2 will be on the back. And it will still match my bag, because this will match up with this top layer of design. Okay, and so whenever you're working on a project like this, and even if you're following a tutorial, if you're not using the same paper they're using, when you look at your design, you need to make your cutting decisions, your directional decisions based on the paper that you had. My paper said, throw away all your excuses, be brave and bold. And so I had to decide where I wanted to make my cut to give me the most interesting design. So I actually cut off the front portion of the paper and used what I call the back end of the paper. And that's very important when you're following someone else's tutorial. So, take a moment. You can stop the video. You can always start it up again. But take a moment to look at it and decide in which direction you want your, which way your paper is going, what your handles are going to look like. Just keep those in mind. Okay, so we're done with this now. We do not need these scraps. We can put them aside. This is cut for right now. I'm going to stick this over on the scoreboard, and we'll bring that back in a minute. We're going to do a lot of scoring. Okay, now with your craft cardstock, you need to take a 12 by 12 sheet of craft cardstock. You only need 1 sheet. You're going to cut 2 pieces that are 4 inches by 8 3/4 inches. Then you need, these will be the size of your bag. Then you'll need two pieces that measure 1 3/4 inch by 8 1/4 inch. And these are your handles. Okay. So I'm going to stop the video, give you an opportunity to make these cuts. Grab your cardstock, make your cuts, and come back. Okay, while we were gone, I forgot there was one more piece that I needed to tell you about. You need to cut from your craft cardstock a piece that is 1 1/2 inches by 3 inches. This is for your closer, and we're going to score that in the middle. Okay, good. So now I want you to grab your scoreboard. Let's see, I'm using Martha Stewart here. So let's start with our bag, and we're going to start, with the front of our bag. Okay, if you're using directional paper, you need to turn the portion of the paper that will be the top of your bag needs to be at your right hand. So the bottom of your bag is at the 0 mark on your scoreboard. And for the front, we're only going to make one score. And we're going to, score this at 3 1/2 inches. All right, there, okay? That's the only score you need to make there. Now, for the back part, and again, if you're using directional paper, particularly if it's not as bold as mine, you need to make sure it's facing the right direction. You're going to score again at 3 1/2 inches, and then you're going to make another fold at 5 1/4 inches. And this second fold is the one that allows your bag to lie flat. So I'm just going on these folds again. So this paper, it may be hard to see maybe on the back, but it's these two folds right here. That extra fold is what allows you to flatten your bag out. Okay. So we're not going to work with that anymore right now. We can put that away. And we're going to score our cardstock, our craft cardstock. For the small closer tab, this one is 3 inches. So you just need to score it at 1 1/2 inches. And then, because it's just going to fold over. So that's the easiest score. And we can put that away. For your sides, okay, this scoring is a little bit more involved. And in order to do this, I knew I was going to leave off something. But you will need your ruler, your straight edge. So let me get mine and put it right here. Okay, so the first score that we're going to make, I'll do these first. So on the 4-inch side, you're going to make a score line at 1/4 inch. Okay, you see that? And you could turn it if you're one of those people who's challenged with measuring and scoring, but it's easier to just go to 3 3/4 inch and score there, and that will give you your other. Okay, you see that? 1/4 inch, 3 3/4 inch. Then you're going to turn your paper, and you're going to score again at um, oh, 3 3/4 inches. Well, you're going to score it 3.5 inches and 5 1/4 inches. Okay, and you have to do this for both pieces. Then you rotate your paper again, and you're going to score it at 2 inches, which is going to come right down the middle, and you're going to bring it down to that first score line. I hope you can see that. And we're going to do it again with the second piece. So now let's get our second piece and put it on the 4-inch side, and we're going to score it at 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and then at 3 3/4 of an inch. Oh, this is for some reason wanting to just slide right off the. I don't know. It may be something on the scoreboard. Okay, then you're going to rotate it, and you're going to score at 3.5 inches and 5 1/4 inches. Then you're going to rotate it again and score it at 2 inches all the way down to the first score line. Okay. And it will look like that. If you can, I don't know if my light is allowing you to see that. Okay. Now, once you've done that, I'm going to move my scoreboard for just a moment and take your straight edge and right at where you did the 2-inch score line and where it joins, right at that joint, you are going to score from that joint to the joint at the bottom score line, this bottom score line down here. Because what you're trying to do is you're going to make a little triangle. And this is what allows your, it allows your bag to fold in. So I'm going to try a different tool here. So we're going to go here and come all the way down to that joint. So from this joint all the way down just to that first score line, and turn it and do the same thing here. And you will have a triangle. Go ahead and burnish this so you can see it. So you see, you will be making like a little triangle, and that's where your bag is going to fold in. And like I said, take it and do the same thing with your other side. And just right down to that next score line, as far as you want to go. I just think the bags look so pretty when they fold down. And also, if you want to put the edges out, you can. That's a style that people seem to like. Okay, so we finished that, and we are done scoring. We don't have to score. We don't have to do any more scoring, so you can put your scoreboard away now if you want. and try to keep your work area clean. All right, so we're going to bring our designer paper back, and we're going to burnish all of our score lines. So, not, you don't really have to burnish these until you get to them. I'm sorry. Let's just burnish the craft stock. Now, because this is going to be your sides and you're going to distress them, but your burnishing you need to do a good job of burnishing because you want clean edges and you want them to be crisp. So I give them a little help first and work them down with my fingers because I don't want to tear them, and then I burnish. And I just want to do this. I usually have my mat up, but since I'm on this tonic glass, tempered glass mat, and although I say I don't advocate for any product, I really don't, except I guess for this one, I really do. This solved so many problems for me. You will not believe. I love it. My work table has two sides, and whenever I was working with my distress inks or I was watercoloring, I would have to get up and run over and work on the other side of my desk. But I have a computer over there, a computer over here. I have camera set up over there, camera set up over here. But to just be able to have one work surface, because I can put the pad down here and the no stick pad down here and work, and I can put my inks here and I can mix them and work on it, and everything is right here, so I don't have to hop up and run around. I still have to work on the other side of this table when I do a lot of my mixed media projects, but for card making and projects like this is a lifesaver. This is a lifesaver no matter what kind of crafts you do. So Tonic and Tim Holtz did us all a solid when they came with this little device. So do that to both of your, and some of you probably are done because I was talking. But let's get these folded in. Okay. This goes, ooh, I should play music. I've got to figure out how I can get music on. I don't want to get too ambitious. I'm not really a techie person. My husband's an engineer. My son has a degree in information systems or something, and they're really techie people. I think sometimes they look at me and shake their heads, but I make it work. If I can't really figure out how it's being done, I will find a way to do it my way. It might be convoluted and around the park, but it gets the job done. I've been successful so far. Okay, so when you get through burnishing everything, this is what you should have. You should have two pieces that look like that. Okay, and what we're going to do with those two pieces now is you're going to get out your ink, whatever ink you're using, and you're going to start to distress this, and this will give you that brown paper bag look. Normally when you're distressing, you start off on the mat and come in. I like for my edges to be very, very dark, as I think it gives you a better contrast. So I start dark. I just come right into it. But I'm holding, if you can see, for the newbies, I'm holding my blending tool up at a slight angle. I'm not really putting it all the way down on the paper because right now I'm just trying to get that sharp corner look that I want. And then when I've done that, then I will come up onto the paper, and you know, it gets lighter as you go in. So just do that, then you go dark on the outside, and it gets lighter and lighter as you go in. I don't go all the way into the center. Well, I kind of, that one little part in the center, I leave it a little light. And on this one, I'm going to leave it a little lighter. It's not going to be quite as dark because I don't want it to be too dark up against that. That's sort of like ochre they have in the middle of that, and I don't want this to play too hard against that. So for the newbies, when you are creating your projects, those are some of the things you have to think about. And sometimes you have to think about it on the fly, because you can waste a lot of time if you sit around trying to figure out every little thing, and then things go wrong. You have to be prepared to turn your, we don't have mistakes in paper crafting. We have happy accidents. And sometimes those happy accidents turn out to be the most compelling element in your design. And that's what I really, really like about designing. Now, this part right here really isn't going to be seen, so you don't have to distress that. You can if you want to, but you don't have to, because that's going to sit inside your bag. It is a support, so you don't really need to do much to that. No one will see it, and you're going to cut off a portion of that. So that's this, and yeah, I think that plays well against these colors. I think if I made it too dark, it would just be not a good blend with that particular. Well, let me keep this here so I can make sure I get them pretty much the same. Okay, so I'm going to stop, and when I come back, this will be done. I don't think that you want to actually sit here and watch me do this messy work. Okay, so these are done, and they're pretty close in consistency. And what I forgot to tell you before we left was to go ahead and distress your closer. I have an idea of that I want to do with the closer, and if I do that, if it comes off the way I think, then you won't see most of this. I mean, you'll see the back part because obviously, but you won't see it. It'll be covered, and maybe even the back part will be covered. So we'll see when we get to that. Okay, now to the part of this, because this is really a pretty simple project. The most time-consuming part is getting the faux wood effect. And how you are going to do that is to take those two little strips that we cut at 1 3/4 inches by 8 1/4 inches. And so we're going to take those, and you can sort of curl it with your bone folder when I turn it the other way, and you can start to get a curl in it. What we need to do with this is we need to start breaking down the fibers of the paper so that we can roll it. I'm sorry, I'm off camera. Okay, in order to get the faux wood look, um, you're going to take your craft stock, and you can start on either end of this strip, and you're just going to sort of pinch it up between your uh, fingers and your thumb. Just sort of do that to it, just pinch it. And as you do that, you'll see the fibers start breaking down, and you'll get these little, let's see, I'm trying to get it. You'll start to get what looks like tree bark, or it does really, once you distress it, you will get that look. So that takes a minute. Be careful, you don't want to tear your paper. You just want to get that little crease and fold in there that will give you the look of wood. And you'll do that and distress it. So let's do that. Let's do both pieces. Here's, to give you some idea, here's just a piece that I was working on earlier. So you can see in this one, because it's really broken down. I worked on this one a lot. And so you can see the wood grain look start to come into that. And then when you distress it and roll it up, that's what's going to give you your faux wood handle look. So let's do that off camera, and then we'll come back and begin to assemble our project. All right, so now we have our handle paper, and it's broken down to the point where we can roll it. So when you can tell if you've broken it down enough when it's easy to roll. And you want to, well, when you get to the end of this process, you want to end up with an opening that's about 3/4 of an inch. A 3/4 of an inch opening. And later on, I'm going to show you something that I added. She does not do this in her original tutorial, but I know my people, and I know that in that paper bag, they're going to put something super heavy, and then if the handle crack, bends, because it is paper, they're going to like, you gave me that bag, and then the handle, collapsed because I put a 5-pound piece of fudge in a bag. So, to avoid that, I ordered these 1/4 inch dowels from Amazon. You get 12, and they're really cheap. So these are 3/4 of an inch by 12 inches, and my husband cuts them down because my handle is 8 1/4 inches, and my husband cuts it down to 8 inches, and then I have 1/8 of an inch on either end, and I actually may have him cut this down to 7 or 7 1/2, because I just want it in the middle really to stabilize this, and I don't want it to be seen on the end. So I might, it depends, I'll see when I paint one if what that looks like. That might help further the illusion of this being a real wood handle. But I just had to do that because, like I said, I know the people I'm dealing with. You may not need to do it. It just depends on your audience. Okay, so now to bring about our faux wood look, we just start blending just as we did on the other craft pieces. And you're going to do the same thing. Start dark on the edges and light toward the middle. Your hands are going to get a little messy. I recommend keeping baby wipes close at hand. I keep baby wipes in my drawer next to me, so I can just reach in and get those out, because I live and die by baby wipes. They also come in handy for cleaning up little stray marks. I've found that I can get rid of some stuff with the baby wipes. For those of you who are new to crafting, you will find over time that you will come up with techniques, and we hope you will share them with us, because everyone has little tips, everyone has little shortcuts, things that they do uh, to make our crafting life easier and more fun. And so when you do something new and you find a new way, a better way, a faster way to do something, I find the crafting community is not a community of jealous people. These are people who are willing to share their talents and their knowledge, and they take great joy in doing that. And if you come up with something new, everyone will praise you and thank you, because we love new techniques and shortcuts. So there we go. And that's my faux wood look. Isn't that cool? I just think this was a good idea that she came up with. I do a lot of faux leather stuff, and usually for the faux leather, I break down my fibers using glycerin, but that's a wet process. This is a dry process. When I do the faux leather, I cut it and then I emboss it. They have embossing folders that have the wood grain on it. You can do any kind of design you want, but it gets down into it, and then you color it in with your distress inks. So I'm going to try that with one of my faux leather projects. Okay, so I'm going to, well, let me show you the whole process on this one. Once you have distressed and you have your handles, the colors that you want, you know, the depth of color or that you want, saturation that you want, you're going to start to roll it. And because you've broken it down, it should roll very easily. And you want to just make sure that on both ends your handle is the same size, and that's that 3/4 of an inch size. So like this one is slightly larger, so just want to make sure you get it all even. And that's, I'm trying to do this with the camera, so I'm not, okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. So you got that end, and we're going to glue this down. So you have that end, it's that size, and this is, can you see? Yeah, same size. Okay, so once your size, and you're sure and certain about your size, take your wet glue, and you're just going to apply glue along the edge. And just, you want to put a fair amount of glue down. And it doesn't matter if it seeps out, because you want to get a good seal, and seeping out around the edges on the outside is only going to help ensure that you have that that good seal. So once you get mine, it came a little unfurled because I was trying to show you the glue strip. So I'm just going to roll it back over and make sure that this, where these, yeah, this is your bottom. This is the bottom of your handle. You want to make sure that, like I said, your paper rolling is uniform all the way down. And this is another reason why the snail glue works so well here, because you can adjust if things get a little crazy. You can make the adjustment. Now, earlier I talked about everyone having their own little tips and tricks and techniques and things that they use, and it's just a matter of developing your own or finding the ones that work for you. The thing that I have found to be a total lifesaver in my studio are these little pin curl clips. When it comes to holding down things like anything, doing mock-ups or holding things down so I can get them glued or get things straight, I love these, and they're very expensive. You can pick them up in the dollar store or Rite Aid or Walgreens. They're not very expensive, or you can get them at the beauty supply. If you have a beauty supply shop near you, you can pick them up there. And at the beauty supply, you get like 100 in a case. Now, when I got mine, it was for a couple of bucks. Prices have gone up, so it may be a little more expensive, but it is totally worth it. Just totally, totally worth it. I use them for mock-ups, and I can put my projects together, and I use these. They have a low profile. I have seen people use other clips when they're mocking up their projects, but they have a higher profile, and for me, because I'm just a little OCD, that would drive me crazy, because it would be in my way and too much a part of the design. Whereas these, just, you know, they're low profile. They get in there, they hold it down, and till you get a good seal. So that's pretty uniform. All right. So you'll do that to both of your ends, and then we'll come back and finish. Okay, now that our handles are done, our sides are done, we're ready to use our plate to make that cut that we talked about. So we're going to start with your front piece, and the front piece is the one that has just the single score line on it, and turn it so that the score line is facing away from you, and this is the top of your paper. So that's where you're going to make your cut. And this is where you're going to use your plate. And I'm going to turn this around for just a moment so that I can make my marks. You need to measure a 1/2 inch in on both sides and just make a little pencil mark there. So it would be a 1/2 inch there, and whoops, I missed my mark. Don't shift. Okay, and a 1/2 inch right here. Okay, so you have your 2 1/2 inch marks, and I'm not sure about this one. I want to double check to make sure that I got it right. It's right. Yay! This didn't look right, even though I counted carefully. Okay, so you make those 2 marks. Then what you're going to do is take your plate, and you can see where my marks are here and here. And you're going to slide your plate down until the edges of your plate make contact with those lines right there. Okay, so there's my line there, and the edge of the plate is just making contact with it, and this is the other line here. This is a new camera for me, so I'm not really sure. The controls are different from my old program. I could just and zoom. I don't see that, but anyway, we're going to draw this line. So you just start at that line and draw your semicircle all the way around to the other line, and that will give you your cutout. Okay. All right. Then you take your scissors and just cut. Just start with your line and cut. Cutting is another one of those challenge things for me. My medications cause your hands to shake, and my disease causes weak muscles, so your grip isn't always what you want it to be. In between the shaking and the weakness, sometimes up here in this room, the scissors and I have ourselves quite a time, but this seems to be going very well today. Yeah, there you go. And any little marks to the left, you can just erase those, because in order to cut your second sheet, you can get rid of the plate. You don't need that anymore. And grab your second sheet, make sure it's facing in the right direction, and just place your first sheet down on top of it, and then use your pencil to trace the cutout that you've made. Oops. You see, this is what I mean about between shaking and not being able to grip things. But anyway, who's it? There we go, and we'll cut it out. And I've been successful getting these in the right place. So let's hope that trend continues. Okay, here we go. Down, and of course, if you end up with a piece that isn't quite 100%, you can trim if it's too high. As I said, I've done pretty well with the 2 bags that I've made. Then I'm going to post one of them on my blog, and the other one is for a later challenge post, so I won't be posting that one. Oh, come on. Let's see what we've got here when I put these together. Is that beautiful or what? Ta-da! I made it work. Yes, I did. Okay, so now one thing that I like to do, I don't think I'm going to do it on this one, but I actually like to distress the edges of my bags. And if you noticed on this one, I distressed all around here. I don't think I'm going to do it on this one, because I have to finish this bag so I can go make her cupcakes, because I made fudge and she doesn't eat fudge. Wow. It gives her a headache. It's too rich. Okay, so here we go. Let's start with the back. Yeah, we'll start with the back. Okay, and take your end pieces and you need to make some cuts before we assemble this. So on this bottom section, you're going to remove these two long pieces and cut them up to that first score line. And when you cut this out, you need to make like at an angle coming down to that. Just snip it right there. So you have that little angle cut on the edge. So you're going to do that on both sides, on both pieces. You come up, cut all the way up your score line. There, come up here and snip at an angle. Stop shaking. Okay. And then you're going to take a slither, just at an angle, just cut a slight slither up to where you snipped it there, and do another one on this side. I always get so afraid that I'm going off the page. My wedges are not always even, but it doesn't matter. All you're trying to do is cut it in so that none of this is hanging over the edge and seen on your project. And then turn to the other end and make the same little snips on the edges like that. Okay, and so let's do this one again. Just cut up to the first score line like so, snip like so, and you can work one side and get done with it. If you like that out of there, you come over and cut this side. Like I said, because this isn't going to be seen, not a problem. There you go. And then we need to, this is not, I didn't do my snip. Let me do my wedge from here. Okay. And then just snip and snip. Okay, so that's ready. Then what you need to do is get your wet glue ready, and take one of your pieces. And how you're going to seat this is that you want that folded edge to come right up against the edge of your pattern paper. So you need to line up the score line. So if you did it correctly, this score line will line up with the edge of that, with the edge of your side. The score lines will be in alignment. So what you want to do is take your snail glue and put a fair amount of glue on here. And because I don't want to get bumps and lumps, and I take my finger and sort of smooth out the glue, it'll make your paper less bumpy. And you can keep a wet wipe or wet piece of paper towel or a baby wipe close at hand. All right, and then you are going to align this. And like I said, you're using the snail glue, so you will have an opportunity to get things lined up. correctly. And this is very important to how your bag functions when the recipient folds it in. So do that. I'm going to take your scoring tool and just, or not scoring tool, but your bone folder, and just smooth that down. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. I know this is a long video, but I wanted to go step by step. Like I said, this is mostly for beginners. Those of you who are seasoned crafters, veteran crafters, design team member crafters, you know how to do all this stuff. So you can just jump ahead, or you know, you can look at other videos where a lot of the cutting and scoring, these things were done off camera, and that's fine. I just think for new people, and people learn differently, people accumulate information differently, so I wanted to make this video so that, you know, newcomers to card making could do this, and it could be a first project that would really wow. Call from .in service. Okay, and so just make sure that those score lines line up, and that's what I'm doing, and that I'm right up against that edge. So you really want to be particular about that. Down, this part is not going to be seen. Okay, so you know, you'd be okay with that. Okay, and I am going to look just to make sure that everything is straight while I still have time to adjust. All right. This one needs to come down just a smidgen somehow. We got out of whack. Okay, see if I can pull this up. Not without tearing. This is really what you don't want. If you can see what I did, I got my edges out of whack. See right here, there's a little bit showing of the, but even with snail glue, this is in place. So I'm just going to have to live with it. But like I said, happy accidents. It happens. I think it's still going to operate okay. We'll see. All right, now, once you've completed that, you want to take your back piece and you line up the edge of your paper with that first score line. Okay, so you'll have a score line here, and then you have a score line right here at the edge of your sides. And so you want to line that up, and then always check it from the back to make sure that everybody's lining up, and they are. So you can put your glue on this portion, or you can put it on this portion. I am going to put mine on this portion of the paper because it's a bigger surface. And try to get close to the edge so that you get a good seal around the edges. And then you can sort of spread the glue so that it's not too wet. Because if you put down too much glue, that becomes an issue in and of itself. So, yeah, you learn very quickly about making dots with glue, which is why I try to use the Precision Point applicator, but it's taking way too much time. Okay, so we've got that down, and let's now stick this. I need my paper towel to dry this off because I don't want my paper to get wet. And I have to make this work because I don't have another sheet of this cardstock. So I have to be careful with this. Okay, that's lined up. That's lined up. That's lined up. Let me do a quick check because I don't want to repeat the mistake that I made on this one flap. Okay, so everything looks good there. So I'm going to go ahead and take my bone folder and try to get rid of these lumps. I did a gift bag project, not this particular one, but similar to this, and I ended up with some bubbles in the bottom of my bag, and I just took some of the leftover paper from my bag paper and put it down in the bottom of the bag. Just glued it down. Even though I added more glue, it looked really good. Alright, so now we're ready to attach the front of our bag. So you take your glue and apply a bead like this, and it will ooze out the side. So even though you think, ooh, I just put a little bit on there. And like I said, we're working with the front first. So you apply the glue and then you just fold the front up like so. And it comes together. It marries perfectly. Oops, unless you hit it. And you get it attached. Just kind of put your finger there to get it attached. Then you can place it on its side like this, or like this. I guess I'm trying to get it in an angle for the camera to see. And you can finish your seal by rubbing your bone folder along the edge. And that brown that you see is because it's the Distress ink. Okay, and so you just want to keep checking it and making sure that your edges are sealing and that they're straight and that you have sharp edges. And so if you need to, when you what I find when I do the bone folder is that if I put my finger on the outside, it will prevent my paper from sliding over and coming outside my bag. So when you get done, that's what that marriage should look like. So if you see any white, like I spot a little bit of white, you still have time to come over and press it down. Okay, and then you turn it and repeat on the other side. Okay, I want this to, I'm not happy with how this is sealed. I may have put a little bit too much glue on there. And it's too wet. Okay, we will do the other side, and you just do the same thing on the other side. I'm not going to put as much glue. And it's already, this side's a little easier because it's already up. So you just, and what I'm doing is I'm pinching, depending on what kind of glue you use. You may or may not have to do the pinching motion, but I feel like I need to. I'm sorry that the back of the camera is to you. I'm going to have to work on my camera positions and which camera position is the best. But all I'm doing is rubbing in here to make this seal and make this marriage work. So, and I like to give it a few minutes to dry. So when you've done that, just repeat the process on the other side. And you'll be ready. When you've done that, we'll be ready to do our handles. So at this point, you should have something that looks like this. Okay. And that's what yours should look like. Something like this. Yours may look better, may look a little worse, but basically this is what you're going for. Okay, so now we're going to do the final step, which is to attach our handles. So I'm going to put this off to the side and take your faux wooden handles, and around the edge you're going to apply just a little bead there, and this is going to be my back handle. So you take one of your pattern paper strips and you line it up so that the bottom where these come together, where you pinch, is where you joined your handle together. So you want to pinch right there and make sure you're pinching. Get that on the edge like that, and then just pinch it right there like that. Okay, pinch and hold, and you're going to do this on all four in a minute. I need to show you one more step. When you have created a seal there, you open these two flaps and add glue to close these two together. Add a little glue, seal that up, and then just pinch. Okay, so we need to do that on all four of our handles. All right, so you remember I told you that my little pin curl clips these are my go-to guys in my studio for holding anything, and I use them to hold my pinch on my handles. So now we're ready to attach, and I'm going to put my back handles on, and because I used a particular design, I want to put these back here. So how you can tell the back is the one with the extra score line that allows your bag to fold if your paper is mirrored paper like mine. So I'm going to turn this like this, and what we're going to do, remove my helpers, and you attach glue to the front of this. Glue around there, little glue around there, and then you're going to line up. I mean, you're looking at the back half, but since your everything is a 1/2 inch, it should line up perfectly for you. This one looks like it might be a little off. Slide this over. I don't want my bag to buckle, so I'm just going to let it be off a little. But there you go. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Trying to get the best. There you go. So you can see that. So you're really just sliding the front part of your bag, that cutout part, up to where you pinch on your handles. See? Just slide it up there and marry that. What I'm going to do, obviously, is put my little helpers on there to make sure I get a good seal on this. Okay. And now I am going to do the same thing on the front of my bag. And because I want this part of the design to be in the front, I'm going to apply my glue on that part of that portion. So a little of the design should show. I tried to line them up so they would be the same, but they're not quite, but close. Close is good enough. For horseshoes, not necessarily. Yeah. And hand grenades. Yeah. That's what they used to tell us in the military. When I was in the military, they'd say close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades. So this is like horseshoes and hand grenades. And I'm going to allow this to dry a little bit. But see, my front now looks pretty good. One looks neat. So you can see the handles and where the handles attach. And I've got this design pattern up here in the handles. And then on the back, I have this. It matches this design. On my other bags that I made, I put varnish on my wooden handles. But I'm not going to do that on this one because I don't think it works with this overall design. I think this is better with just that natural wood look on these handles. So that's where we are. Now all we have to do is attach our closer, which I probably should have done earlier, but I've decided that this button will work. I'm giving her her orange that she craves so much. So what I'm going to do, so this is my front. So what I'm going to do is attach this little button, and there she will have her orange, and it will work with this design. So even if I put my little clip on there, you can still see how well this will work with the design. Like that. It's going to be pretty. And I'm going to add a piece of string. I'm just going to thread a piece of string through there. So I'll be right back after I've done that. And while I'm gone, you can figure out what embellishments you want to use on your closer. Okay, so here's my finished bag. I have put my closer on the front. I added this. These are really, like I said, aggressive. So you might, oops, that didn't dry yet. I just put that on dry. But you might want to, if you use these Tombow attachers, you want to do it a couple of times to make sure you get a good seal. My I pulled this up before my glossy accents had a chance to set. You really need to let this set. So I'm going to put a little more on there. Pat it out with my hands and stick it back down. Okay. Alrighty. And now I'm going to leave that alone until it dries completely, and then I can fix my bows. But there you go. And you can see the closure. It looks really, really good. And there's the whole bag. I hope you can see that. And there are your sides. Little bag. Oh, and some people like to do their bags like this and fold the sides out. Usually when they do that, if that's the look that they want, they don't do the extra scores on the side, but I like for mine to fold in. All right, well, that's this tutorial. I'm sorry it took a long time, like an hour and a half. The other tutorials won't be this long, but like I said, some of them I do want to gear them to beginners and talk them through step by step and see them and have them see me do it. Have you see me do it? And if I make a mistake, they'll know, okay, people make mistakes. So some of the videos you see are really, they're perfect, maybe because they've been edited. I think when you're starting, you need to see that mistakes are okay, that these beautiful projects you see are not always perfectly done the first time, that before a video is made, a lot of the artists have already made multiple cards of this design. And so we want to do this in real time. So you can make mistakes right along with me or jump ahead of me and wait to catch up, you know, run the video forward to get to the point where you are. I thank you so much. I hope you will become a regular at A Place to Start. And I also hope that you will visit me on my blog page and subscribe. I will put the information down below to allow you to do that. Thanks. Bye.